For over 20 years, it was the greatest story wrestling ever told. A brotherhood of monsters born from fire and betrayal. We saw the demon, we saw the phenom, and we thought we knew all their dark secrets. But what if the real story, the one that happened when the cameras were off, was even better? This is the truth about the professional sacrifices, personal demons, and the unlikely friendship that fueled the most iconic brotherhood in wrestling history. Before we get to the truth, you have to remember the story they sold us. It was a tale spun from the darkest threads of Gothic horror, a family tragedy of epic proportions played out in the wrestling ring. The whole thing started not with a match, but with a secret. Pallbearer, the ghoulish manager of the seemingly unstoppable Undertaker, turned on his protege, threatening to reveal a twisted truth from his past. That secret was Kane. As the story went, the Undertaker had a younger half-brother, the product of an affair between his mother and Pallbearer himself. In a jealous childhood rage, the Undertaker supposedly set their family's funeral home on fire, killing his parents and, he thought, his little brother. But Kane survived, horribly scarred and mentally broken, hidden away for years. He was a ghost, a monster waiting in the wings, driven by one single desire: revenge against the brother who ruined his life. This was the mythology fed to millions. It was a story of a disfigured demon who couldn't feel pain, returning from the ashes to get his vengeance. For months, the build-up was a masterclass in suspense. Pallbearer's cryptic warnings, Undertaker's rare displays of fear, it all led to one of the most legendary debuts in WWE history. At Bad Blood in 1997, during the first ever Hell in a Cell match, the lights went red, the demonic organ music hit, and a 7-foot monster ripped the cell door right off its hinges. There, face to face with his brother, Kane announced his arrival by delivering Undertaker's own signature move to him. It was the perfect, chilling start to a saga that would define an era. They'd be rivals in the first ever Inferno match, and nearly unbeatable partners as the Brothers of Destruction. Their on-screen relationship was a twisted cycle of betrayal and alliance. The storyline got even darker, with The Undertaker at one point confessing his role in starting the fire, only to later partner with Kane out of a warped sense of family duty. The story was dark, convoluted, and absolutely captivating. It made us believe in monsters. But behind the smoke and fire, a far more real and compelling story was unfolding. One not of hatred, but of respect and profound professional sacrifice. To find the real story, you have to rewind past the demonic debut and look at a man who was fighting for his career. Before he was the Big Red Machine, Glenn Jacobs was an athlete trying to find his place. In the mid-90s, he finally made it to the WWF, but success wasn't just elusive, it was nowhere in sight. First, he was Isaac Yankem, DDS, Jerry the King Lawler's evil private dentist, a gimmick so absurd it was mostly met with a collective shrug from the audience. Then, after Kevin Nash and Scott Hall left for WCW, Jacobs was handed one of the most thankless jobs in wrestling history: the fake Diesel. Dressed as the ghost of a departed star, the character was a creative disaster, and Jacobs' career was sinking fast. 2 failed gimmicks were often a death sentence, and this is where the on-screen myth and the off-screen reality couldn't be more different. The man who would become his greatest fictional enemy, The Undertaker, was the one person who saw his true potential. Mark Calaway was already the locker room leader, the respected conscience of the company. He saw in the struggling Glenn Jacobs a fellow big man with incredible athleticism and a real drive to succeed. Jacobs himself admits he was struggling, and his unhappiness showed in his work. After one particularly bad match, it was Calaway who pulled him aside and gave him some tough love, telling him he had to get his butt in gear if he wanted to stick around. That moment was a turning point. It was advice from a man Jacobs already saw as a role model. Calaway became his mentor, and he didn't just offer words, he advocated for him. When the opportunity for a new, monstrous opponent for The Undertaker arose, Calaway championed Jacobs for the role. Vince McMahon liked the storyline so much that a planned one-off match was expanded into a long-term story. The mask wasn't just a prop for a horror story, it was a brilliant tool for a career reinvention, hiding the fact that this new monster was the same guy who played an evil dentist. And in the months leading up to that debut, Calaway guided Jacobs. Their relationship wasn't one of bitter enemies, but of a veteran guiding a talent he truly believed in. Think of the trust required for that iconic debut. Jacobs was walking into the main event of a pay-per-view, interrupting two of the biggest stars in the company. He later admitted he was incredibly nervous, but the moment worked perfectly because the man in the ring, The Undertaker, was his biggest supporter. The look of shock and fear on The Undertaker's face is what sold the story to the world, humanizing the dead man for the first time and instantly making his new rival a legitimate threat. The greatest rivalry in wrestling was built on a foundation of real-life mentorship and respect. The man fictionally sworn to destroy his brother was, in reality, the person most responsible for building him up. The success of the Kane character was explosive. The story of the two brothers became a cornerstone of the Attitude Era, but this success came with a heavy price. A dark side that had nothing to do with kayfabe fires and everything to do with the grueling reality of being a WWE superstar. The first sacrifice was woven right into their dynamic. The Undertaker was the phenom. He was the top star, the main attraction. Kane, for all his monstrous power, was created to be his ultimate foil. His job, more often than not, was to make The Undertaker look even stronger. In their first major match at WrestleMania 14, it took 3 tombstone pile drivers for Undertaker to finally beat him. A decision designed to make Kane look unstoppable, but ultimately to put The Undertaker over. This pattern would repeat for years. This meant Glenn Jacobs had to be incredibly selfless. While The Undertaker's character was protected, Kane's went through some wild and often bizarre changes. He was unmasked in 2003, a move Jacobs himself said was done out of creative desperation to spike ratings. He became a comedic tag team partner in Team Hell No. He morphed into Corporate Kane, a character in a suit that Jacobs admitted lost its way and just ended up getting beat up by everyone. Each shift required Jacobs to sacrifice a piece of the original terrifying monster, all for the good of the show. Then there was the physical darkness. The life of a top-tier wrestler is one of non-stop pain. Both men were giants performing incredible athletic feats for hundreds of days a year. The Inferno match, where the ring was surrounded by actual fire, wasn't a camera trick. The heat was real, and the risk was immense. Jacobs has talked about how suffocating the original Kane mask was, making it hard to see and breathe. The physical toll wasn't just in the big bumps, but in the simple act of performing under those conditions every night. Undertaker set a grueling standard. Jacobs recalled how Undertaker would perform a high-level, 30-minute match even when hurt, inspiring Jacobs to adopt the same mentality. You never phone it in. Undertaker praised Jacobs for this, saying you could count on him like the sun coming up in the morning. That relentless grind takes a mental toll. The loneliness of the road is a demon many wrestlers face. Jacobs has credited his wife and family for keeping him grounded. For Calaway, the pressure was immense, once telling Vince McMahon he worried more about Kane's career than his own. This wasn't the burden of a kayfabe brother, but the real stress of a mentor wanting to see his protege succeed. The dark side wasn't a fictional backstory, it was the daily reality of sacrificing your body and your character for the business. It was the unspoken bond forged not in fire, but in shared pain and unwavering respect. As the years went by, the true nature of their relationship became clear. The on-screen brothers, who had tried to set each other on fire, were in reality the closest of friends. Their bond, forged in the trenches of the WWE, went far beyond the ring. With the rise of podcasts and documentaries, both Mark Calaway and Glenn Jacobs have been open about their deep friendship. On Calaway's own podcast, they share stories with the easy chemistry of old friends. The demonic siblings of storyline are, in reality, two guys who share a similar sense of humor and a deep understanding of the business they help define. Perhaps nothing shows this better than Undertaker's support for Jacobs' political career. After decades as Kane, Glenn Jacobs ran for mayor of Knox County, Tennessee. In a huge gesture of friendship, Mark Calloway, a man famous for protecting his character and private life, made public appearances to support his friend's campaign. Jacobs himself said how tremendous this was, noting that Calloway doesn't normally do things like that. Calloway, in turn, has praised Jacobs as a genuine and intelligent man who got into politics to make a real difference. The ultimate public acknowledgement of their bond came in 2021. During a WWE broadcast, Kane was surprised with the news that he was being inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. The person who delivered that news on screen was The Undertaker. It was a perfect, full-circle moment. The man who mentored him, advocated for him, and shared the ring with him for 2 decades was now the one welcoming him into wrestling's most exclusive club. Today, both men have mostly stepped away from the ring. Mark Calloway had his final farewell in 2020, and Glenn Jacobs is the successful 2-term mayor of Knox County. But their connection remains unbreakable. Their legacies are forever intertwined, a fact both men proudly acknowledge. If you learned something new about this legendary duo, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into wrestling history. And let us know in the comments, what's your favorite Brothers of Destruction moment, in or out of the ring? The story of Kane and The Undertaker is, without a doubt, one of the greatest narratives in wrestling history. It was a horror story that captivated millions. But the most shocking truth is that the real story is even better. It's a story about mentorship, where a locker room leader saw potential in a struggling performer and gave him the advocacy he needed to succeed. It's a story of professional sacrifice, of 2 men enduring immense physical and mental strain to uphold an incredible standard. And ultimately, it's a story of a deep friendship that completely transcended the scripted hatred. The real dark side of their brotherhood wasn't about a funeral home fire. It was about the pressure of stardom and the physical toll of being a giant in a brutal business. The unbreakable bond between Mark Calloway and Glenn Jacobs wasn't forged in a fictional fire. It was forged in the sweat, pain, and respect earned over thousands of miles and hundreds of matches. They weren't brothers by blood, but they will forever be the Brothers of Destruction.